Hi guys, what's up? My name is David and welcome back to my channel. If you've been watching my previous videos, you know that I've just returned from more than a week in Norway, Sweden, and Denmark, and I'm gonna talk about that entire experience later when I've processed it all, let's just say that. But I do want to talk about something that is linked to what I did last week, and it's solo traveling. Specifically, solo traveling as a trans person. If you don't know, I am trans. So, I went to a festival in Norway for a week and then spent some more time in Sweden and Denmark, and I traveled alone. And I did the same last year. So, first, I want to talk about my experience last year because it was completely different than my experience now. Last year, when I did this for the first time, I was 17 years old, so I was underage. I was a few months on T, so I didn't always pass as male, and I did not have the right documents yet, meaning when buying tickets for stuff like public transport, I had to use my dead name, which is significantly different to my situation right now, being almost a year and a half on T, having changed my name, and being an adult. Now, why does this matter? First of all, traveling as someone assigned female at birth, they're looking like a woman, having a woman's name, stuff like that is dangerous, unfortunately. A lot of stuff can happen to people perceived as women, especially when they travel alone. So traveling for either a pre-T trans man or a trans woman is very dangerous. At least, well, it's not always dangerous because not always bad stuff happens, but it's more likely to happen to someone either presenting as a woman or being perceived as a woman. So in that situation, I am very happy I currently pass as male, and I definitely feel more safe traveling alone. But the fact that some other people don't have it as safe is still very concerning to me, and something should be done about that fact. But yeah, another thing is documents. So, you know, when traveling by bus or train, depending on where you're going, you do not always need to have a ticket with the right name, because if you're not crossing borders, well, it doesn't really matter if you have right documents or not. At least it's not always checked. But if you're traveling by plane or if you're crossing borders, then it's kind of important to have a ticket with the same name as on your documents in case it gets checked. So I changed my name literally a few weeks ago, and up till a week before my trip, I wasn't sure on what name I should have my tickets. I bought them before, of course, on the name I use right now, just hoping that it was gonna be the right one. And fortunately, they did not get checked. I mean, my tickets got checked, but I never got ID'd, so even if I hadn't changed my name, it wouldn't be a problem. But if I were traveling by plane, you really have to have the same name on your ticket as on your ID, because you could either be denied travel or pay a fine to correct your name on the ticket. And if you're traveling with a group of people who know you're trans, they can provide some sort of mental support in moments like that. But when you're traveling alone, you either have to out yourself as trans, or you have to let yourself be misgendered, which both situations are not fun. Then another thing when traveling alone, a very important thing when you're trans or queer in general, is checking what the laws are around LGBTQ people in the area you're planning to travel to. Now, I personally live in Western Europe, and my travel was to Northern Europe, which are all countries that are, in comparison to some other countries, very progressive. And even though there are transphobic people everywhere, it's not illegal to be trans, and I would not have any problems because of the fact that I am trans. But let's say I wanted to travel to the Middle East or to Indonesia, for example. I would have to be very careful. And I'm not sure I am up for stuff like that. Even though I am legally male and everything checks out on my ID and how I look, I still don't think it's safe for me to travel there. And if you are a trans person who really wants to or has to, for some reason, travel to those countries, please be careful. That's something cis people might not always think about, is sometimes your existence in a certain country might literally be illegal, and it's just an extra thing to worry about when traveling, and especially when traveling alone, this could be very dangerous, because you can just disappear in a country, and if you're alone, maybe that's the last time people hear from you again, so let's just not do that. Then, another thing when solo traveling is sleeping somewhere. Now, I personally have no problem sleeping on public transport. I have, in the past almost 2 weeks, I've slept on a night bus 4 times, and I do know that that's not for everyone, but I've personally traveled during the night since I was 3 years old, from Poland to the Netherlands and back, so I am experienced in sleeping in moving vehicles. But, you know, when sleeping potentially next to someone, you do have to be careful about your belongings, because they can just disappear. But me sleeping on public transport does not only have to do with efficiency and not paying for a place to sleep, it also has to do with me being scared to sleep in a hostel. So, I am not super rich. I am fortunate enough to have money to go on holidays, which I know is not the case for everyone, but I am not rich enough to pay for a room in a hotel for myself for a few days. I did that last year in a very cheap one. I was happy enough to have found one, but it was a 50-minute walk from the city center of Oslo, so you gotta sacrifice something. But some cis people, when solo traveling, stay in hostels, in rooms where multiple people stay. They are usually mixed, but sometimes are segregated into men's rooms and women's rooms, which of course is a problem in its own. So, I don't know. For some reason, I do not feel safe sleeping in a room with other people that I don't know. Maybe that has something to do with being trans, but it probably also has something to do with, you know, dangerous people being out there in general. So if sleeping in a hostel is something you would be planning to do, just watch out that nothing happens to you in the night. Another thing when it comes to traveling, especially when traveling for a longer time, is health insurance abroad. And I don't know how it's like outside of Europe, but here it's possible to have a European health card, and if you have that, you are able to get emergency help abroad. And let's say you break your leg or something else happens. In medical situations, people always need to know that you are trans because of the way your body might respond to stuff like the amount of medicine or specific surgery or stuff like that. So you need to keep in mind that if something happens to you abroad, you would have to tell people that you are trans. In conclusion, whether it's safe or not to travel as a trans person really depends on where you are in your journey. I definitely feel more safe traveling now that I pass as male and have a male name in my documents than a year ago. And this doesn't only have to do with being trans, but also with being a man, or at least being perceived as one, because traveling solo as, like I've said before, as a woman or someone passing as a woman is inherently more dangerous, because cishet men can be dangerous creatures. So I'm just lucky to be in a position where I am not someone that would have serious problems when traveling. especially also because I am tattooed, I have body modifications, and having body modifications decreases the risk of you getting kidnapped because you're worth less on the black market, so that is another thing. But yeah, I love traveling, and it's kind of sad that some countries are just off limits to me, either for legal reasons or just because I do not want to travel to a country which would allow me to be there but is not friendly towards the trans people that live there. I would not want to have privileges as a tourist, so I'm just not gonna go there. And yeah, I will talk more in details about my personal journey, literally where I just came home from yesterday. But I need some time to process it. I need to sleep. Like I said, I love traveling, but it is exhausting. And I don't understand how people go on vacation to relax. I do more on vacations than I do in my normal day-to-day life. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you can learn something about what it's like to travel as a trans person. And I will see you next week. Bye bye. And if you're wondering what this shirt is, I bought it in Stockholm. It's so nerdy, I know, but as a Swedish student, I just had to get this one. It has like a lot of facts about Sweden, and you know, I love Sweden. Jag älskar Sverige. So this was just the perfect shirt to get. But yeah, bye bye.